to Next in the Queue. This is my very first episode, so I'm really excited to be starting this project. Basically, Next in the Queue is a podcast that connects you with musicians and industry folk, and we just sit down and have conversations about what got them into the industry and what got them making music, being a part of making music, and what they have coming up. Yeah, and then the second part of this is having them produce a little playlist that has a theme, and we get to talk about it, so it's cool. So my very first guest, I have James with me.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm looking at the mic as if it's a camera.
So yeah, do you want to give us a little introduction for those of us that aren't familiar with
Sure.
who you might be?
Yeah, my name is James. I've been making music since I was 7 or 8, and I'm starting a new project very soon. It's called DBA James. It means doing business as James.
No, yeah, I saw that trade name.
Yeah, which is, you know what I'm doing. And I've spent a lot of time the past couple years writing as much as I could throughout the pandemic and a little bit after as well. I mean, I guess it's never going to be after, but I'm in New York and hanging out, getting ready to put this out, so I'm excited. And it's been like 2 years, I think. I've been really writing and just nose to the grindstone and having fun, and yeah.
So you've been interested in music since you were 7 or 8. Where you come from a music family? What got you into wanting to make music in the first place?
Yeah, my family isn't explicitly musical, but I feel like I was really sensitive to the TV shows and media of my time when I was a young child, and I think there was just a lot of guitars on TV, and there were a lot of people doing that kind of guitar-based music thing in pop, so I got a lot of it as a kid, and I just started doing it kind of just to emulate the people that I saw on TV and listened to on the radio. And I think one thing in particular that got me started was that Disney movie Xenon, and she has a band and they play a show, and I was just so amazed that these people could play music in space and it could sound this good, and it's so fun to watch. And after that I had to keep going, keep exploring.
I think a lot of the shows that, we're relatively the same age, in our youth, kind of we're heavily music influenced. I'm not musically gifted, but I remember with my sisters, we all have T names. I was we're gonna start a band, it's gonna be called Triple T's.
Yeah.
It'll be fun, but none of us can sing.
Sure.
I tried to play the guitar at one point, but it didn't work out for me. But I think a lot of those influences kind of help shape a generation. How does
Sure.
The pop influence your current project that you're putting out right now?
Yeah. I think it's just making things listenable to everybody. It's it's so basic, and I don't know, I just remember being able to understand Aaron Carter songs on the radio. They really spoke to me as a child, or a Britney Spears song, and listening to them now I've realized that they do conjure a similar effect. And I think that, to me, I've been really on this tip of functional music, music that can grow with a person for a really long period of time and not necessarily be a hit at any point, but a part of somebody's immediate like list, and I think those songs were something about them, they just imprinted on me. And I think pop music specifically, and music written with the intention of being remembered, is really powerful, and I think I've been drawn to that, and also too the idea of writing something that isn't meant to be experienced once. It's meant to be a book that you reread, and you listen it again, it becomes part of your immediate person, that. That's the kind of music that I want to create. And I think I think pop music has always done a really good job with that.
Yeah, like I'm not always listening to Britney, but like when I do remember, like I like get into like a deep hole of just like listening to like all of her records like over and over again.
Oh sure, yeah.
But since you've been into music since you like were a young age and you went to Berkeley, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a music school, like music heavy. Do you think that it helped you in any way? Because like sometimes people, they go to music school like it's for them and that really helps them develop and experience like what they want, like what they need, but some people it's not the right track, it's limiting in a way.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean there's like so many different I think like I guess like colleges, I don't know if college is still like higher education, but anything like higher education in general, I think for people, the way we push kids into it isn't right these days. I really don't believe everybody's meant to go to like a 4-year college. For me, going to school, it helped though, because it allowed me to accelerate through a lot of like periods of learning like really specific things, and like songwriting or guitar or like playing in a band or things like that. It just gives you this little protected space for 4 years, like a long time, like a pretty long time to just do everything, so you get to the conclusion, or you get to like your sound or your kind of keystone like a little bit faster. And I don't know if I had like 17, 18, I'm not sure I would have had the attention span to really sit down and like discipline myself and like learn these things without like some sort of like investment, like, oh man, okay.
Like having a direction.
Yeah, totally. So I appreciate it. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, if I just, like kept writing songs, and like I wonder where I'd be, but I'm always grateful for, especially if you're able to, like my favorite thing is to do is like sitting down, and like before you came here I was just like, I had some free time and I just like sat with my guitar. Like that's such a privilege, and to be able to do that for a while is like, even on that level I'm grateful for it. Like good memories from it,
Yeah, I know. I think also college for me, it's like, I don't know, it gives you like extended like waiting time to kind of figure out what you want to do, and like not everybody's afforded that, and college is a privilege. Like
totally.
I had 4 years to like sit down and try and figure out what I wanted to do. I mean, I was a psychology major, I'm not doing that anymore, but like gave me the time to be like, oh, this is what I want to do, and figure out like other things. And I think Berkeley, since it is a music school, I mean like you're basically just going to school for that, so like I'm sure it helped you out a lot.
Yeah, totally. And just like seeing people being able to catch like big periods of growth like in your late teens and early 20s, I think is important. Like circles that you kind of run with, and they change as you get further along in your career there. But yeah, like that too, like just being around, like if you have an interest, being able to like put that out and meet like 5 kids who have a bunch of free time who are like doing that, and like be with them and grow with them for a while. Like something I've noticed about like being out of school or touring or anything like that, it's like your pod is your pod, and you kind of move together, and it's so atomized, and it's much like you have to put in so much more work to find like minds around you, as like a adult, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
Not that like students aren't adults, but
yeah, I get it. Yeah, I feel like college, you're not like an adult. I mean, like you have responsibilities, but I feel like now that I have a job in the real world, it's 10 times different than like when I was in college.
Totally.
But yeah, so like being around that scene, any other bands that like were formed in Berkeley like ever influence you, want to inspire you to keep on writing, like, oh, I want to be like them, or I like what they're doing here, and things like that.
Totally, yeah, all the time. Like all the time. The most the most I've learned is by going to, they used to have these shows in the cafeteria, and kids would you could book them whenever, and sometimes they were great and sometimes they were kind of weird, but they were usually really great. And I don't know if there are any bands that necessarily inspired me, but some of the playing at these shows, like you'd see these kids in the practice room for like hours, the day before or like whatever, and then you'd see them there absolutely shredding, and it was like, it's really inspiring to be like, oh my god, I can learn a lot, like, this week, like, you know, and I think that's, like, that worked in, that put through the lens of, like, the kind of songwriting I want to be doing is, like, was, like, the best thing for me personally.
Yeah, and then when you were in Berkeley, is that when Bay Faction formed, or, like, when was that?
It actually formed, it's from the summer before. The
summer before you went to?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and we were, I forget what we were doing. We were all gonna go to Berkeley, and, like, we were all connected tangentially through, like, people in Massachusetts, and yeah, and then it all worked out. But yeah, it started that summer before and kind of carried on throughout, which was also a great thing too, because, like, that was my first band, and that was, again, I had, like, a little protected bubble to learn how to do that full time, you know. I had, like, an internship the whole time, because that's, like, I was either, like, playing shows with them, or I was, like, in school, you know, and that was kind of my life for a while, so that was huge. Yeah.
Sorry, how is being a part of that project, like, help influence you now that you have your own solo work that you're working on?
I think like learning how to write songs with two other people all the time was the biggest one. Second, being able to, you know, because Andrew was a part of it too, and, you know, so that's, like, 3 other people besides myself that you have to stay aligned with for such a long time. So I really learned how to manage long-term, tight quarter relationships. And I think that was a huge blessing. Like, you know, you're gonna be, like, we shared hotel rooms for years, and, like, we were on the road for years, and, like, you know, minivans or, like, pickup trucks, or, like, sitting on people's floors and stuff, you know. So we really had to learn how to coexist for, you know, sustainably, you know, for a long period of time. Yeah, so it was good. I learned a lot. I feel like that I learned more doing, I learned more about people and actually playing out in music, and, like, the business of, you know, kind of, like, you know, extending your music to people who might want to hear it and people who might already know it, and kind of balancing how can we, you know, get out the most and do the most as a band, but also, like, survive, and at what point is the line gonna kind of blur and we can do it full time, you know, on lower means, you know, all of those things, like, and, like, balancing lifestyle, and, like, we all had relationships, you know. I learned a lot, like, from that. I feel like it was a great first project. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, and then that ended kind of, like, in the midst of the pandemic, and when you had all of that, like, alone time to kind of, like, write, is that, like, where you did most of the writing for this EP that's coming out, or? Yeah,
that was right in March 2019?
2020.
2020?
It's been so long.
Oh my god, yeah. March 2020, like, that's kind of when we stopped. We were supposed to go out for a pretty long tour with this band out of California. We're going to be opening for them.
Yeah, Honey.
Yeah,
I was going to see you on that tour.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, but it got canceled. I love Honey.
Okay, yeah, same. Did they play the Hall recently, like, this fall? I was at that show.
Yeah, they did play the Hall. It was a good show.
Cool. But yeah, and then, like, a couple of those dates started, like, falling out. We're like, oh, it's gonna be fine. Like, you know, we might, and then they all pulled out, and we were just kind of like, well.
Yeah, it was funny. When that was happening, I still bought my ticket.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh my god,
I was like, it'll be fine. I was a senior. I was, like, living in my little senior club. I'm like, I'm gonna go back to college. Like, I'm gonna go to the show, so I bought a ticket. I mean, I got refunded.
Yeah, that's my next question. I hope you got refunded. Did you graduate over the pandemic?
Yeah. Sad, horrific time.
No. Because you make it so far, you know?
Yeah. Like, and it was... You know, like, when you're a senior, like, I'm saving, like, all of this time to do all these things that I wanted to do. Because, like, I had my last couple... I didn't do any of those things. I waited too long, and then I couldn't do them.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So it was a great time to graduate.
Class of 2020. It's like, seriously, that's going to go down in history.
I didn't even take any senior pictures. Like, I have no graduation photos now.
Wow. Bro, graduation. Did you do it on Zoom? Like, you just kind of...
Yeah, the funny thing is like, they said that we were gonna have a graduation, and then like 3 days before they canceled it. So it's like people had already bought their flights and all this other stuff. They canceled it, and I went to UM, so like big football school, but they still had a football game like 2 days later. They're like, we won't host your graduation, but we will still have football.
We have 4,000 people in a stadium now. We'll have a football game. How about that?
No, yeah. And so yeah, then like we did it online, and then there was a graduation in November, but by then I already had a job in the life, and so it's like I can't go back. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, that's a quick turnaround though. Good job. Honestly, it's hard. I feel like I couldn't imagine if I were to, because like the only thing I had to do after college was tour, and if I graduated when you did, and I couldn't do anything, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Yeah, just sitting in South Carolina doing nothing. Yeah. So, you've been making music since 2012. So that's like 10 years.
Yeah, totally.
So that's a long time. Like, there's this book that I took a class. It's like The Outliers, I think, maybe. Mm-hmm. It's like doing 10 years of anything that time. Yeah. Like you're a professional or something like that. Do you feel like a professional? Or do you feel like you're still learning and growing? I personally love that. I love the 10,000 hour rule because it's so funny because it's like you can spend 10,000 hours doing the wrong thing or like wrong thing for you maybe. And you like still gained a certain amount of like mastery, but it's just not right. It's not applicable to anything, or it doesn't align with like what you want to be doing as an artist or a person. So I feel like I've spent a lot of time reinforcing and writing on like bad habits, and then I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I have 10,000 hours of like my best songwriting, but I've been doing it a lot. Absolutely. I think in that time, like when I first started writing, it was really kind of random, and I mean I was a teenager, and I didn't really know anything about it, and so it's hard to count all of it, you know, because I almost you forget sometimes, because even before that I was like playing music, but I think maybe in like my 40s I feel like I need more time. More time.
I think I have this vision of myself in my 40s that'll have it, you know, figured out and absolutely nailed. And like I do sessions with a bunch of people, but some I'm lucky enough to have like older writers in the room, and they always, I mean not always, like let's say at least 60% of the time like have an answer that's like so much better than mine, and like I want to be there. So
yeah, you want to be at that level.
Yeah, but it just takes time.
Yeah.
So, one day.
So this EP, you've been releasing it on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Like, what inspired you to do that instead of like, you know, like the general release route, like Spotify, Bandcamp?
Honestly, a lot of things. I think each streaming platform has such a personality to it, and it has so many valuable characteristics that can really help people if you align to them correctly. And something about SoundCloud, I just like it. I like how barren it gets. I like the pockets of interaction that it has, and like the way people interact on there is so funny to me. Like my favorite thing is like listening to a song I like on SoundCloud, and this might be kind of bad, although SoundCloud does pay, at least in my experience, pay more per stream than like most platforms, but I do listen to a lot of music on SoundCloud, and like seeing people's comments pop up and like the things that people say at a certain point in the song as a songwriter is like you get to look at people's thoughts while they like listen to music, and no other platform has that feature, so I've always been drawn in like literally for the comment section. And I think the culture of it's pretty cool too, like just the ways that you can like UI stuff, you know, like you can see some of these playlists that they've made and the music that they've made like in the same kind of column on the front page of it. It's just like more fun. And I also started, like when I first started this SoundCloud that I'm currently using now, because I've had many, like it's like burner accounts like that I don't have the passwords to anymore, that I don't know really where they are when I name them or anything. But this one that I started, I wanted to start from scratch entirely and just see if the music I was making had enough merit to draw attention of people who have no idea who I am, who didn't listen to my last band, who, you know, have nothing to do with me. So I thought SoundCloud too for that was sort of the most like public looking platform. Like Bandcamp has a really specific kind of like DIY turn that takes, you know, maybe a person kind of adjacent or in that scene to recognize and to like value, but SoundCloud feels really public. And so I just made a bunch of QR codes with a puppy on it and like blue and yellow, really bright, and I put them up everywhere in Boston because I was living in Boston at the time. And one by like literally like 2 plays a week, I would see people like, I saw this in Union Square, like interesting, or like, why are you posting these around? Like, what is this? You know, people just kind of like having these like small experiences with the music, and that kind of got me really into just uploading on SoundCloud more. Like, just seeing who's it felt like fishing almost. Like, it was kind of bizarre, you know. And that's another thing too, is that like presenting somebody a song on SoundCloud versus Spotify or Apple Music or something like that feels a lot more personal. It's like I made this thing in my room and like you're one of the first people to see it, you know. And that's always exciting for me when I find new music, is like I'm one of like the first people to see this. This is great. Like that sort of like pretension that we all hang on to, you know. And I think SoundCloud does a good job of keeping it a little bit precious and kind of quiet, you know. And I think in that space, like versus like a Spotify playlist or something, it's a way different like user experience, you know. SoundCloud is like kind of cute.
Did you like enjoy the experience of kind of like being able to start over, kind of?
Yeah.
Like instead of like having your name be tied to like past stuff that you've done.
Totally. Yeah, it felt great. Felt really good, you know. Because, you know, like when you're pursuing those things, it takes so long, especially if you're not making like real pop music. It takes so long to sort of find your groove, you know, or your trench sometimes. And I think that being able to sort of not think about like the name of my band as I'm writing a song and the people that I'm writing with and like the people that are gonna come out to see us and the tours and the merch and like all these other things that you have to do once your band is going. I really enjoyed just sitting down and being able to kind of vacuum my bedroom, or I was technically in a barn for most of the writing for this EP, pretty much all of it. Just kind of shut the door and just be in there for, I mean, I was in there for days sometimes, you know. I would go to bed at like 4 a.m. and come back out at like noon and just stay there all day. And that was great. That's a really powerful memory for me now. Like that I got that like little piece of, I could like, I'm like, oh, okay, like I can go and like hustle now and be out and about and like doing things because I was able to get that time, you know. So it felt really good. It's really like restorative, honestly.
And so it comes out on all streaming platforms the 27th?
Yes.
April?
Yeah. The first song, it's really 2 weeks away. It's called Trad Future. It's not a part of Check Yes to Connect. Check Yes to Connect is the EP that'll follow it. But Trad Future is one of my favorite songs. I wrote it out in San Diego with partially with my friend Jake, who is also starting a project called Nuffer. Check it out. It's gonna be great. Hi Jake. And I uploaded it on SoundCloud, and that was one of the songs that I tied to the QR codes for like a very long time. It was like a big kind of like, I love this thing, like, can I, like, who else out here, like, is there anybody out here that will connect with this? So yeah, it's finally going up on Spotify, and that's kind of what I'd like to do as well, is like maybe move some of the songs from SoundCloud onto Spotify, give them another chance on a different platform, and kind of let the people like tell me what they want to hear, you know. And I think that's like a really important thing too, is like being tapped in as an artist and like looking at Like, not just being like, okay, well, my only job is to create music for people. You also have to be like looking at like what they love, you know, and like focused on like, I don't know, kind of like building that relationship further. If they like literally, if they listen to a song, we're like, put that one on Spotify, like make it easy, you know. Yeah, so that's the first one, and there will be more off the SoundCloud that probably make it at some point. But yeah, April 27th, chart feature.
Yeah.
It's gonna be sick.
You were talking about how like kind of like doing things like with fans and like kind of like doing like kind of like making it like a cohesive process, like also doing what they want.
Sure.
But how does that like, how do you like do like that tug of war kind of like when your like ideas shift and you want to like go down a different route kind of, you know?
Sure, yeah.
How do you
Which has happened before.
Yeah.
Totally.
How do you like deal with that?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think the only solution is to be more aware as an artist and be like, okay, well, if you want to shift, like, how can you do it in a way that you feel great about, but also like when looking back at the project as a whole, it was like totally natural and necessary almost, you know, like within the conversation of that you've created with the people who listen to you, like how did you like bring this up to them, you know, because that's really what it is. It's not just like, oh, like I'm gonna, you know, bang out this new sound and do an album or whatever. I think it would feel better if it was like, hey, everybody, can you, like, would you listen to this? Like, would you hear this, you know? And again, just repeat that process of like letting them choose the things from like whatever it is that you bring to them next, you know? And I think at a smaller level, like that's why I want to do that now, because it's so easy to communicate with, like if like a few hundred people are listening to you, it's really easy to communicate with them at this point in time, which is why I think it's like, I'm so excited when anybody is like beginning to release a project, because there's so much like fun to be had there, you know, because it is brand new and it is like really close contact. Like I like check my SoundCloud DMs to see if people like have found my old music, you know, because they'll send it, and like I've uploaded or reposted a couple of the tracks that I've seen floating around, you know, like just making it a place that like if somebody enjoys you, like making it so that they can like spend some time there, and it's not so like single oriented and like here's the single this month that you're gonna listen to, you know, and it came out of left field and you had no say in what it was gonna be, you know, even though you love this one so much more, this one deserves to be the single, but it's not, kind of thing.
How does that compare with like touring and like people seeing it live and then like also having like things to say, like how, like which do you like prefer, like touring live and like seeing people's reactions to the live music, or like recording and like getting people's reactions from like releasing like singles and EPs and things?
I think they're both great. I have an introvert like really deep in me somewhere that likes to like sit on the computer and like post things and see what people have to say, you know, like I like that too, because people are so much more forthcoming on the internet, and like even within the sort of sometimes like codified language that people use when they want to interact with their artists, like you can kind of tell what the vibe is. I feel like playing live and meeting somebody who listens to you, we all kind of fall victim to like first introductions, you know, and stuff like that. So I feel like you get more like in my past project, I've like people have come to shows who I would see online all the time, like posting stuff, you know, and they're like so different in person. I'm like, you say like crazy shit in the comments like that, and they're like, you know, like obviously like me, just like a normal person, and I think there's more. I think the relationship between an artist and the people who listen to them can go deeper online than it can at a show. For like a lot of reasons. I love playing shows. I can't wait to play shows. I haven't played a show in so long. It's like absurd.
So single coming out in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Check yes to connect.
Check Yes to Connect is coming out sometime after that. I think I actually just picked up my phone so I can look. Andrew was kind enough to put all this in a note. Check Yes to Connect is coming out after that, and it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be like released by song, just to kind of see what's up. I don't know why. I don't know if there's like a reason for doing singles like that, but the official date for the EP release is June, sometime late June. I'm looking at a range here.
Yeah.
sometime end of June, the whole EP should be out. But the first single for it is going to drop on, I think, May 23rd. So, May, June. Tentatively, May, June, this thing's going to be out. And, I'm really excited. That's like another thing, too, is like, we sort of expanded the people who are involved with this. So it's like we're for the first time, like you kind of have to balance everything out with like the people that are like contributing to the project, because they have to be there for it, instead of like I used to like live with my band, you know, and we just kind of put things out as they happened, and it was like way more streamlined. So I'm learning the calendar on my phone really well, and like just keeping stuff straight, and but end of June.
Okay, cool. So I think now we can like get into like the playlist that
Sure.
You made. So for your playlist, you wanted the theme to be like the only playlist you could listen to for the rest of your life.
Like actually listen to for yes. So like the whole I think the central theme of this playlist is like fractalized music, you know, and it's these songs this isn't a thing that exists, but it's like, in my opinion, songs that people, and it depends on your personality and like what you like, obviously, but there's some songs people can listen to and like hear something different every single time they listen to it, because and I don't actually know why that is, but I think it's mostly songs that were like recorded with a fair amount of energy and life in the room, and they're just forever captured in that recording, you know. And like I'm looking at it right now, like all of these songs are things that just have like life energy, you know, and that's like pretty much the only reason I say I could listen to them forever and ever, you know. A lot of techno on here I'm seeing. That kind of goes back to my love for like functional music, you know. I think obviously like dance music, like high BPM, kind of like bigger room music is like so great, because it's such like a key. It's like meant to be some purified like resource to like change the way that you're thinking currently. And I think that's so fun. So there's a ton of techno in here. There's a lot of really good singer-songwriter stuff. There's this artist, Rue. That song, Delete Me, is specifically a huge one for me. It's just like such a like kaleidoscope collage thing, and I can listen to that every single day because it's dense. It's like, these are all like very like dense songs, you know, at least to me. So.
Yeah, I think when like I'm making playlists, especially like when like the topic that you picked, it's hard for me to like think about like what if I had to pick songs that like collectively I could like listen to forever. I get into thinking like, well, what's my favorite artist? Right. But like I have so many artists that I like. I'm like very bad at making decisions, so I'm like never affirmative about like one specific thing. I'm like, yes, I like this, but I also like this, and I'm indecisive, so it's kind of like cool to see. Like, you're like very definitive about your taste and like what you like.
Oh, of course, yeah, and I'm sure like it'll change at some point too.
Yeah,
I'm sure, you know, but I get that, especially with music too. It's so like slippery, and it's like whatever you're listening to obviously like follows where you are, and I get you. It's hard to know. It's hard to know like when I'm like 50, and it's like I've listened to these things like 10,000 times, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like I've gone through so many stages of like different genres and things that I found interesting. Like, if you talk to me at like 16, like definitely I don't have like the same music taste anymore. And I don't know, I've never one to like look back on like music that I've listened to that I like liked when I was young and
Sure.
then like, why did I listen to that? Because like it had its purpose for like that time in my life, so it's like I'm never really embarrassed to be like, oh yeah, I did listen to that.
Yeah, when you were a child, like, come on. I know, I think we should be easier on ourselves for like the sake of the artist and the sake of the listener, you know, because the artist was there too.
Yeah.
Like, they made this out, right? Like, I look at some of the bands I would listen to as a kid, and I'm just so amazed, like, that I found them. You know, like, what part of my brain at like 14, or my person like resonated with this? Like, this
Exactly. There's like a lot of like very heavy music that I was listening to, and I'm like, what were you going through? You weren't going through anything at like 14 to 16. Like, you had no problems.
And it is a fun way to learn about emotion. Like, I remember getting into like heavier music as well, and being like, whoa, this guy, this like adult man sounds like so angry. Mm-hmm. Like, what is going on? Like, I've never heard a type of like expression like this, you know? So I think it's fun to like experience those things as long as they don't stick, you know? Because I come across this like really, I think it's like a pseudo stat, but like a lot of people stop, like, or a lot of people's like curiosity in cultivating a music taste generally tends to taper off in their 30s. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people kind of like, that's why like rock stations play the same music like for like a very specific age group forever. And it just really kind of freaks me out that a lot of these artists, because I'm not 30 yet, like, what if my cap at 30 comes and then I still have all of these people in here from when I was like 12 or 13 that I'm just stuck with forever? And I think in a way that's actually true. And I think like maybe when I'm a little bit older and I'm able to accept, you know, like the Aaron Carter stages and things like that, I'll actually be able to enjoy that music a little more thoroughly. But on the theme of this playlist, I guess like every song we hear that is a song that you're gonna hear forever, because now it's just in your consciousness, you know.
Yeah, and I think with Spotify, I feel like it also has like hindered, I don't know if I want to use that word, but like hindered my like need to like want to make playlists anymore. And that's kind of like why I wanted to start doing this, because I'm like, I haven't been as like searching for new music as I need to be, but like now that's part of my job. But like before that, like I wasn't really doing that, because like Spotify makes playlists for you and they're like, you like this, so you could probably like this, and I usually do, so then I'm like, I don't need to find new music. But now I think since it's part of my job now, I've like found a new love of it for it again, and it's like fun to discover new artists that you're like, yes.
Oh, of course.
I mean, and then like also like it's fun to be like, oh, I discovered them and they had this so and so listeners, you know, like I was an OG fan, blah blah blah.
Of course.
I mean, it's always fun. Like we can lie and say like, oh, I don't care, but like most people do. Like people love being there from the beginning, and it's fun to like discover new music, especially like with younger artists, to see like there's still like that heart and drive in creating music.
Of course. Yeah. Andrew, like something Andrew says all the time, it's like music is, like new music is usually always for young people, you know, like people who, that's his alarm. Yeah, and it really is, and it's like so exciting. I wish sometimes that I had a job that I was able to just like find the origin of like all of these things happening, and especially in a place like New York, because there are so many. And I feel like the self-promotional aspect is different here than it is a lot of places. Like people try to have a little more dignity about it, so they're like, that makes them maybe harder to find sometimes. But like when you kind of like uncrack a lid on a really great teeny tiny project or scene, it's like it's so fun, you know. And to be able to like show them to other people who are in your city, who could like go see them play that day or night. It's cool.
Okay, but you brought up a really good point about like self-promotion. Like, how do you feel about it? I feel like at this point, like anything that you do is kind of like you have to like self-promote yourself, but like at the same time, it always feels like in my opinion, to me, cringe to do. Like, I'm like, I want to post my photos, but like I also like I'm aware of like what other people are thinking all the time.
Oh, of course.
So I feel like sometimes musicians don't like to do self-promotion, and I think I've experienced that like doing like being in New York. Like, not a lot of them like to be like, I'm playing this, and like, don't you want people to come? Don't you want people to experience it? Like, how do you feel about promoting yourself and kind of like commoditizing yourself as like...
I think it's hard to say all at once, only because I think like the people who do the best job, it's just like communicating that you're like available to like let somebody experience something, you know. And I think when you start looking at it as like promotion, there are a lot of extra add-on things that we've sort of accumulated from like an ad culture that like give us the wrong idea as artists about like what we need to be doing, right? Where it's like, okay, like there's no way you can completely saturate like the mind of like a market somewhere in music in a certain city as an indie artist. Like, you just don't have the resources to do it. But that's what like a lot of brands aim to do, who are like really well funded and have like, you know, entire marketing campaigns lasting years and things like that. So I think it's like, to bring up like the conversation again, like you need to have some sort of like quick communication with even like a few people that listen to you, even if it's like 15 people that know about you playing a show. As long as you can communicate to them and are able to put blinders on in a way that you're not doing like big blasts of like, hey, I'm out here doing this, because that always feels bad, you know, like putting that much of yourself out onto the internet and hopes for a return on something, like a show or an event or something that only happens one place in time, like that feels bad. And I personally think promoting yourself like that can be really destructive to your like ego as a creative person, which is like really important, I think, to creative people, like managing and cultivating a healthy ego, you know. So I think being able to speak quietly to those who need to know is like always better than, you know, like outward loud self-promotion. Kind of like I've seen this a bunch happening in New York, where like people will give out flash drives at shows for new music, and you know, you can pass them around if anybody still has like a USB drive on their computer, and like just like smaller, quieter things like that. So it's like getting it to the person who like desperately wants to hear what you're going to do next is always going to be way more fun and rewarding than like trying to convert somebody or like sell somebody on your music. And I think that goes really far down in projects. It's like some people write songs to convert like listeners, you know. And that's kind of the set of pop music that I've been really weary of lately, is like, you know, writing like very specific like line cliches and like kind of like melodies floating around that are used by everybody, and it's like, oh well, like the only reason that you would use this like mi re do thing is to like tell somebody that you're not threatening, you know, and that your song is cute and they should keep listening because it might happen again. Like that sort of like fishing for a get is like really tough.
I think that like happens a lot with TikTok sounds, in my opinion. I don't know if you have a TikTok or whatever, but I think
am on TikTok, yeah.
I think some, especially like bigger artists, have like snippets of like 15 seconds that are like really good, and like they gas it. Yeah. And like people are excited for the release, and then when they release a song, it's only that 15 seconds
that's all you're gonna get, yeah.
That is really like catching.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. I ran into that last night. I won't say the artist, obviously, but like thought it was gonna be like a perspective changing song, you know, like just the hook was so it was like funny, it was really intense, it was really clear, and the rest of the song was like a bridge, you know. And I think that style of writing is like something that's trickled in from, I see like the closest parallel being like blockbuster movies, you know, like you watch the trailer and you've watched like not only the movie but like potentially like 5 others in that genre. And it's just, in my opinion, it's like it's something that runs a risk of like turning people away from your music and like TikTok music in general, because it's like, okay, not only did the song not really live up to that 30 seconds, but also I'm not gonna explore. I'm not gonna type in your song on Spotify anymore to find you, because it's just, I'm gonna listen to these playlists that I know I love. You know, it's tough, and like there's always room to innovate within spaces like that. Like, hopefully we'll have a bunch of artists who can, you know, withstand that 30 seconds and like the other 2.5 minutes of the song and like have great music come out. But it's just work, and I think that's gonna take time for people to realize that like it's way more rewarding and like honest and entertaining to have like a great 2 minutes than like a wishy-washy 2.5 minutes and a banging 30 seconds, you know? It's just like, I think enough people have to sort of get sick of it for it to change, but it's what we're stuck with for a while.
Cool. I don't really have anything else to go over, but do you want to leave any like departing words, or like where people can find you?
Sure.
Things like that.
Well, first, thank you for coming over
yeah,
and doing this.
Thank you for doing this. You're my very first guest.
That's an honor. And yeah, Trad feature out April 27th everywhere, and shortly after, check Yes to Connect.
Cool.
That's it. That's my
All right. Thanks.
Only give it up if you don't expect it back. Both ways, don't ask. Just look me in the flesh where you found me in the grass. Catch a look, let it pass. Spitting on the sheets 'cause
All right, you've reached the end of my very first episode. It was a pleasure having James on as my first guest. As you can hear in the episode, it is well past April 27th, and Tried Feature is out now. And so it's playing at the beginning and end of the episode. But James does have a new single coming out on June 8th, and it's called About Us. Check Yes to Connect is also coming out June 22nd, so you will have a lot of things to stream from James in the coming weeks. I will have links to all of that in the description below. I just want to say thank you all for listening. I also want to give a special shout out to Andrew for helping organize all of this. I want to say a special thank you to my sister for helping design the logo and all of the artwork that I've been using. And a very, very special shout out to my friend Aaliyah, because she has literally helped me every step of the way in producing this. This has been a long time coming and literally would not exist without her. So I want to say thank you to her as well. That is the end, guys. And until next time, thanks for listening.